It's been over 48 years since that night. And yet, when I close my eyes, I still hear the creak of the hallway floorboards, the whisper of snow against the windows, the sharp breath I took when I saw him, standing in the doorway of the children's room, a stranger with no face in the dark. The memories don't fade, they just learn to hide. After the call from Detective Rames in 2024, my past was no longer just a nightmare I tried to forget. It became part of a solved case. I should have felt closure. I should have felt peace. But that's not how trauma works. Knowing his name, William Kernan, didn't undo what he did to me, or to Maria Hansel. It didn't erase the fear that lived inside me for decades. It didn't change the fact that he walked into that apartment planning to end someone's life. And if things had gone just a little differently, he would have. For months after that call, I couldn't sleep properly. I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling fan turning above me, hearing the echo of my teenage scream. Sometimes I'd startle awake, heart pounding, convinced he was still somewhere, watching, waiting, ready. My therapist, yes, I went back to therapy, said something I'll never forget. You didn't just survive, you fought back. You screamed, you ran, you saved those kids, you did everything right, and you lived. She was right, but it took me years to believe it. I started writing letters. One to the kids, Tommy and Lily, now adults with children of their own. I hadn't spoken to them in over 30 years. I told them everything. What really happened that night, how close we all came to dying, how brave they were, even in sleep. Tommy replied with a voice message. I never knew the whole story, he said. Mom only told us bits and pieces. But thank you, Alyssa. You saved our lives. That message broke me, in the best way. Another letter I wrote, one I never sent, was to Maria Hansel. I found her photo online. A high school yearbook picture, soft brown eyes, light freckles, a shy smile. She was just a kid. Just like me, babysitting for pocket money, probably watching the same shows on TV that night, probably thinking about school and friends and crushes, and he took that all away. The letter was a confession. I told her I was sorry, that I lived and she didn't, that I didn't understand why fate chose the way it did. I told her that if I'd had the chance, I would have tried to save her too. Then I lit a candle and burned the letter in the fireplace. The flame danced high, curling the edges of the paper before it turned to ash. I watched every word disappear into smoke, like a prayer, like a goodbye. There was one more thing I did. I visited the old apartment complex. Yes, after all these years, it took all the courage I had, and then some, but something inside me needed to stand on that cold sidewalk again, to face the building that haunted me for so long. It looked smaller. The walls had been repainted. The stairs now creaked louder than before. A new family lived in Mrs. Carter's old unit. I didn't knock. I didn't even go up the steps. I just stood across the street and stared. And remembered everything. The crunch of snow under my feet. The scream that tore from my throat. The light that flicked on just in time to save my life. It was still there. The lamppost, still flickering like it always had. I stayed for a long time that night. Not crying, not shaking, just being. And when I left, I didn't look back. Now, in the quiet of my Kansas home, I keep a box. Inside it is the newspaper clipping from 1977. Teen girl escapes knife-wielding intruder. There's a photo of me at 16, eyes wide and pale, a copy of the police report, the thank you card Mrs. Carter wrote me a week later, and a copy of Maria's obituary. Some nights, when I feel that old fear creeping back in, I open the box. Not to relive the horror, but to remind myself I'm still here. My name's Elisa, and I was 16 when it happened. I've spent years trying to forget that winter night in 1977, but some memories refuse to die. They wait in the dark corners of your mind, creeping out when you're alone, reminding you how close you came to never making it back. It was a Thursday evening, February 7th. Cold enough that the snow hadn't melted in days, and most of Colorado Springs had retreated into their homes by dusk. I'd been babysitting for Mrs. Carter for a couple of months by then, just a few doors down from our apartment. She was a single mom working the night shift at a 24-hour diner off Academy Boulevard. Sweet woman, always tired, always grateful. Her kids, Tommy and Lily, were 6 and 8. Polite, quiet, the kind of kids who went to bed after a story and didn't make a fuss. Babysitting for them was easy. Read them a book, keep the TV low, pocket $5 by midnight. That night, Mrs. Carter rushed out the door, lipstick still half applied, her coat slung over one arm. "Lock the door after me, Alyssa," she said breathlessly, handing me a $5 bill before kissing her kids goodnight. I nodded, already eyeing the black and white TV in the living room. "Don't worry, we'll be fine." The apartment was small, a single-floor unit with worn carpets and toys scattered like breadcrumbs from room to room. The kind of home that always smelled faintly of laundry detergent and peanut butter, cozy in a cluttered way. Tommy and Lily were already in their pajamas, nestled under a blanket on the couch. I read them green eggs and ham while they giggled and yawned. By 8:30 they were tucked into bed, their shared bedroom warm and quiet. I checked the front door again, twisted the lock, then turned off most of the lights. I settled onto the couch with a bag of potato chips and flipped through the few available channels. Static, sitcoms, and a fuzzy game show. The fridge hummed behind me. Occasionally, a car would pass outside, headlights streaking across the curtains. Everything was normal, until 9:04 p.m. A soft thump echoed from the kitchen. Not loud, just enough to make me freeze mid-bite. I tilted my head toward the sound, holding my breath. It could have been anything. Maybe the ice shifting in the freezer, or one of the toys falling from where I'd tossed it onto the counter earlier. Still, my heart ticked a little faster. I got up and peeked into the kitchen. Nothing. The small window above the sink was shut tight. No movement, no wind, just my reflection staring back at me, wide-eyed and jumpy. I laughed under my breath. "Get it together," I whispered. Still, I picked up the old rotary phone from the side table and placed it beside me on the couch, just in case. But 5 minutes later, a different sound sliced through the stillness. A metallic scrape, slow and deliberate, like someone dragging a key or blade across glass. It came from the back door, the one that led to a tiny fenced-in patio behind the kitchen. My body tensed. I turned off the TV. Silence swallowed the room. The kids were still asleep. I could hear Tommy's soft, wheezy snore from their bedroom. Gripping the edge of the couch for balance, I tiptoed toward the back door. The hallway was dim. The door had a narrow window covered by a thin curtain. I pulled it back just a little. The patio was bathed in shadows, lit faintly by a far-off streetlight. Snow covered the concrete, undisturbed. But just past the glass, maybe 10 feet from the door, I saw movement, a shifting shadow, tall, still. I sucked in a breath. I backed away slowly, heart hammering. I checked the lock, still latched. My fingers trembled. I turned to grab the phone, and froze. Footsteps. Not outside this time. Inside. Heavy, slow, coming from the hall. Way that led to the kids' bedroom. Every hair on my arms stood up. My lungs stopped working. For a full second, I couldn't move. Then instinct kicked in. The man took a step forward. I stumbled back, heart slamming against my chest like it wanted to escape my body. The knife trembled in my grip. He didn't say a word, just stood there, tall, silent, with dark eyes that locked onto mine like a predator watching a trapped animal. Then he moved. Quick, sudden. I screamed and bolted. The hallway felt too long, the air too thick, like running underwater. I could hear him behind me. Heavy boots thudding the floor. I turned the corner into the living room, almost slipping on the carpet. The phone. I lunged for the rotary phone on the end table, but my hand knocked it to the floor. It bounced once, the cord twisting like a snake. No time. I turned and ran to the front door. My fingers fumbled on the lock. Sweat slicked my palms. I could feel his presence closing in. A shadow loomed behind me. Closer, closer, click. I got the lock undone, yanked the door open, and flung myself into the night. "Help!" I screamed, bare feet hitting cold pavement, lungs on fire. "Somebody help me!" Snow crunched under my feet as I ran across the parking lot. Behind me, I heard the door slam open again, his boots crashing down the steps. I didn't look back. I couldn't. If I tripped, I'd die. I screamed again, louder this time. A porch light flicked on, then another. Then I heard it. A man's voice shouting from a second-story balcony. "Hey, what's going on down there?" I turned toward the lights, toward life. My dad appeared at the end of the walkway, his flannel robe open, a flashlight in one hand. He'd heard the shouting. He ran toward me as I collapsed into his arms, sobbing, unable to speak. Behind me, I heard nothing. No footsteps, no yelling. Just the freezing wind, the open door swaying slightly in the distance. "He was inside," I gasped. "In their room, with a knife." My dad didn't wait. He carried me into our apartment and called 911 while my mom wrapped a blanket around me and tried to calm my shaking hands. The police arrived within 5 minutes. 2 squad cars, sirens off, lights flashing, guns drawn. They swept through Mrs. Carter's apartment but didn't find the man. The back door was unlocked, its latch broken, probably how he got out. He'd vanished into the dark, slipping between buildings or into the woods behind the complex. The snow showed partial boot prints near the patio, but nothing clear. But they found something else. Blood. On the wall just outside the kids' room. Faint, smeared like someone brushed against it. Not mine. The officer pointed to my jumpsuit. There was blood on my sleeve too. I hadn't even noticed. They collected samples, took fingerprints from the back door and dresser, took my knife too for prints and blood analysis. I gave my statement, again and again, shivering each time I had to say the words. He was just standing there. The kids, still asleep, miraculously unharmed. They didn't wake up once during the whole thing. Tommy was still snoring when the police checked on him. They didn't see the man, didn't even know he'd been there. Mrs. Carter returned an hour later, rushing into the apartment with her hands over her mouth. She nearly collapsed when she saw the crime scene tape. She thanked me 100 times, crying into my shoulder, promising to never leave the kids alone again. I never stepped foot in that apartment again. But the story doesn't end there. For years, there were no answers, no arrests, no suspects. The man had vanished like smoke. I started therapy a few months later because the nightmares wouldn't stop. The dreams were always the same. That moment when the shadow stepped forward in the dark, knife glinting like a fang. I stopped babysitting after that. How could I not? Every creak, every window shadow mad. Amy flinch. My parents did their best to help. They installed extra locks on our doors, kept the porch light on all night. Still, I never felt safe again. Then, decades later, something happened.